So allow me please to read off what I wrote down, just like Gabriela, because I tend to go off topic a lot when it's just me rambling about. But then I'll just add some things as I see fit. Before I started teaching the biology of science fiction elective that I made for students in Ateneo, and yes, I teach that elective, I was given first a sort of primer on the science fiction genre by my co-teacher then, Maria Mina, who had studied Philippine sci-fi for her master's thesis or master's degree here in this school in UP Diliman. And she had told me that central to sci-fi is the novo, which Gabriel had also already mentioned. And in fact, in our lessons, or we started this year's class in biology of science fiction by discussing the article by Darko Suwin on yes, the estrangement. The estrangement that is very characteristic of the science fiction genre. It's the novum is the new, the element that makes a story sci-fi, whether it's aliens or time travel or nanobots or whatever else. Being a biologist, of course, I'm naturally drawn to the stories that have a biological novum. Aliens, hybrids, clones, artificial life forms, strange planetary ecologies, etc. Those are the ones that I really like reading about and watching in terms of TV series and film. One of the first science fiction novels that I read that I tremendously enjoyed was The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula Le Guin, and it features a very unique type of reproductive mechanism among the people that populated that particular world. And I had come to add that to the, well, not that novel itself, but a short story in the same universe by Ursula Le Guin in my reading list. So yeah, so I also feel, of course, being a biologist, that I am most qualified to talk about the biological aspect of some of these science fiction stories. So that's what I'm going to focus on. And so a lot of the stories that I'm going to mention are the ones with a heavy biological novum. So Vince Torres is The Cost of Living and Diaspora at Astra. Hereinafter referred to as Volume 1. So when I mentioned Volume 1, that's Diaspora at Astra. Is an eerie and somewhat disturbing take on resurrection or revival of the dead, which is actually a scientific possibility. There have been a lot of cases of humans just recently dead, like within just a few minutes, within a few hours even, still being revived. It really depends on a lot of different conditions, including the temperature, including how much damage was sustained by the body. And some of these factors were actually mentioned in the story: cryostasis, cellular revival, etc. In cryostasis, I think that's something that's very popular among people, right? Like freezing the body. In fact, there are actually companies in the US that do that already. The very rich people, the ones with with an insane amount of money, are the ones that have themselves frozen in those tanks in these companies in the US, so that they can be thought out sometime in the future when a cure for their disease is already available, or something like that. But right now, we don't really have the technology to thaw out properly because we don't have. Well, there's already a sort of scientific innovation called vitrification that allows us to replace the blood with some other fluid that doesn't freeze as easily. Because the problem with blood is if it freezes, you create ice crystals and that damages the blood vessels and the blood cells, etc. But yeah, cellular revival also, that's actually one of the biggest problems when the body dies, which is that the cells themselves die. When that happens, death is irreversible. So if you can reverse that, then you can actually still revive a human being. And that is touched on in The Cost of Living. Even more disquieting than that story is the somewhat thematically similar Surrogate, already mentioned by John and Gabriela, by Daniel Carlos Stan from Science Fiction, Filipino Fiction for Young Adults, hereinafter referred to as Volume 2, which is a Stepford Wives kind of tale that exacerbates the Uncanny Valley problem. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of the Uncanny Valley problem in reference to robots and artificial intelligence. We deftly handle touches on issues of infidelity, longing, guilt, and familial love. I love how the language, the words of the girl, see, Janet are written. She speaks like a teenager really would speak. I think that's a so. And she's so mad at the world. It's reminiscent also of an excellent episode of the sci-fi TV series Black Mirror. I don't know if you've been watching that. It's an excellent TV show. And both present scientific innovations in artificial life forms and uploading consciousness that can definitely be anticipated in the near future. Creating robots that very closely resemble humans, a trope that's also used in Raymond P. Reyes' cute coming-of-age story, The Romeo Robot in Volume 2, is certainly a possibility now, with 3D printing technology a boon for creating real skin. It's very easy now with 3D printers. 3D printing technology, the greatest limitation now in terms of creating organs is the fact that it's still very difficult to recreate a blood vessel with 3D printers. But once we achieve that, which is probably achievable in the next 2 years, 3 years, we're off to producing artificial life forms in large batches for various purposes that can be creepy. Yes, in our own houses. Right now, just to share, there is an artificial life form. In 2010, the first official artificial life form was created in laboratories, in the laboratory of Craig Venter, the same person who led the Human Genome Project. And it's called Cynthia with an S. So Cynthia, synthetic organism, coming from a bacterial template that was mixed. So it's an entirely new organism, and it has a lot of various applications. It's rather off topic again, like I told you, go off topic even when reading a script. But yeah, it's related somewhat in that it's an artificial life form. Yeah, a lot of it is actually creepy when you talk about, so the surrogate story is actually very creepy. But we'd have to wait, the problem is, so you scan very easily on, but we'd have to wait a while longer for true consciousness uploading. That's because up until now, we do not know everything there is to know about the brain and its functions, including memory, much less something as abstract as awareness and consciousness. What we do know, which I'd like to share, especially those who don't have a background in science, is that myth about us using only 10% of our brain, ilang percent ba yun? That's not true, okay? You are using all the parts of your brain. Not just not at the same time, all the time, but you are using parts of your brain all the time. Because if that were the case, parts of your brain would atrophy and melt away and you die. So, I hate that idea. And scientists hate that idea. Epigenetics, which is the study of how environmental factors can change gene expression and thereby pass on physical changes to the next generation without necessarily changing DNA, is touched on subtly in C.P. Coulter's The 13th Unit in Volume 2, though the term is never used. I don't even know if C.P. Coulter intended to use the epigenetic concept for that. Epigenetics is gaining ground in the scientific community, particularly in the context of revolutions in the understanding of evolution. Because normally when we talk about evolution, we talk about characteristics that are passed on genetically through DNA changes, through mutations. But now, we have these epigenetic changes, which are physical changes that somehow also change the gene expression. So those gene expression changes are passed on to the next generation. Got lost somewhere. Ayun. Induced superpowers are also the novum in Dana Ruth S. Ballesteros' Ashes Ambers in Volume 1, which could have been much more engaging had it highlighted the neuroenhancer's functions and provided some sort of an explanation for Joanne's apparent self-immolation, which as a biologist I find very hard to believe or accept. I particularly consider the lapse with the neuroenhancer a missed opportunity, as it would have been very enlightening and interesting to explore how stimulating certain neural networks, neurotransmitters, brain functions would produce superhuman abilities. I think at the core of a lot of superhuman powers in Marvel, DC, and all of these is some form of a telekinetic ability, which has to do with the brain's development. Yeah. Of course, all sorts of creatures abound in these 2 volumes. We have creatures whose descriptions make them almost supernatural, as in Alexander Marcos Ucias's Oplan Sanction in Volume 1, and Kate Ucias's Poetic Moon Eater, and Victor Fernando R. Ocampo's Engaging Infinite Degrees of Freedom in Volume 2, which I think a lot of the people here in front agree it's one of the better stories in the collections. The latter's use, the use of in Infinite Degrees of Freedom, the use of the notochord, and I quote, techno-organic extension of his limbic system, end quote, is a deft touch. The limbic system is that part of our brain that's responsible for processing memories and emotions, including fear, particularly in the amygdala. So the rampage of young Deo's creation certainly has a biological context. We also have in Katia Oliva Liego's Gene RX in Volume 1 caricatures of the typical space invader whose purpose for infiltrating human society is survival of the species. The story would have been more strongly written, though its premise is interesting enough and does touch on the much discussed Filipino penchant for whitening products, as was mentioned by Gabriela a while ago. Then there are the stories with aliens whose appearance isn't nearly as important as what goes on with the human characters. Nikki Alfar's humorous The Incipient End of the World in Volume 2, and The Superior Lucky by Raven Guerrero in Volume 1, which is an exceptionally beautiful story, which was my favorite actually among the collections. Calling the aliens visitas in the Filipino context is an inspired touch in that particular story. I usually use two criteria for including stories or novels to the reading list of my biology of science fiction class. The strength of the biological number one criterion. The strength of the biological novum, meaning how prominent it is in the story, how well thought out it is, if there's enough of it given to us that we can discuss the science behind. Because it's difficult to discuss the science if the novum is, if what's offered to us is so thin, right? So enough of it has to be there. And number two, of course, the quality of the writing. Okay, so given those criteria, I consider including the cost of living and the 13th unit, mainly on the first criterion. If it were just a writing class, I definitely include Lucky and another gem from the Superior Volume 2, Lacan Emali's The Ceres Girl. We panelists were also asked to talk about the Filipino flavor, the science fiction in these texts, which is quite natural given that they were written for Filipinos, written by Filipinos primarily for a Filipino audience. Volume 1, Diaspora at Astra, is the one that's more explicitly packaged in this vein, which makes the glaring lack of the unique Filipino flavor, at least in my opinion, rather disappointing to tell the truth. My personal take on it is that most of the stories in this anthology could have just as easily had non-Filipino characters, and they would have been the same stories. For me, a random Filipino expletive, utang ina, or a carelessly thrown around Filipino word, or most lazily, just Filipino names for characters, does not make these stories Pinoy sci-fi. That's my honest take on it. And then there are stories like Carl Joe Javier's The Day the Sex Bomb Dancers Invaded Our Brains in Volume 1 that sort of lack subtlety and hit the readers on the head with as many masa culture references that they can. Cute, yes. To take it, to say it mildly. The best science... Sorry, Rachel. Pakainisip na natin yan is a bit... is attacking people. The best science fiction takes us to a different world with a sense of intelligent wonder without ever making us feel disconnected from the real world that we live in. In the Pinoyness context that we were asked to talk about, the standouts in this regard for me are from Volume 1, Celestine Trinidad's Taking Gaia, and from Volume 2, Kim Sarabia's Jeepney Blues and Umali's The Ceres Girl. All three extol the Filipino virtues of resilience and ingenuity without being necessarily preachy about it, because who likes reading a preachy storyline? Taking Gaia and The Ceres Girl both highlight the socio-economic significance of overseas Filipino workers, OFWs, with the former going the political route, and the latter being a more emotional tribute to working mothers, and the distance that they are forced to create between themselves and their children. And of course, in this story, what greater distance is there? We're talking here about distance between Earth and an asteroid. It's not just between two countries. And in fact, they need to use an Ansible to be able to communicate with each other, delaying by a day their communication. Jeepney Blues is that type of story that you may appreciate not necessarily during the reading, but sometime after you finished it, which is how I experienced it. At first, I found the use of a jeepney and of luga was overly blatant Filipino-ness of the story. But then, after thinking about it for a while, it seems to be a cohesive whole that even touches on ecological degradation, which is close to my heart as a conservation biologist. The use of artificially generated cyclones, definitely a possibility, to hasten the ocean's natural turnover process, as well as the intended conversion of the solid waste to atolls or coral substrates, are interesting ideas and can actually be pursued realistically. I anticipate more Pinoy sci-fi stories revolving around the unique situation of OFWs, but hope that they can be taken to even greater extremes. For example, having Filipinos taking on important roles on many planets in an intergalactic empire could be an amusing tale. The idea that Filipinos are everywhere. They can take over anywhere. More importantly, many other aspects of Filipino society and culture can be seeds for great science fiction. How about something on our ever-expanding food culture, our obsession with food trips and taking pictures of and writing blog entries about food? Or something on business process outsourcing, in particular the call center industry. Or our obsession with beauty pageants. A sci-fi spin to Miss Universe. Nandun na yung pangalan, di ba? Miss Universe. Deep sa naman this story. The unique Pinoy LGBT culture. Our sports obsessions, basketball, volleyball, school rivalries, ever. Showbiz and love teams, right? Eliza Victoria's Rizal in Volume 1 is almost prophetic in how it weaves a story around the government that's hell-bent on eradicating drug addiction. Surely our current political climate is ripe for more sci-fi stories on these things. There have been interesting sci-fi treatments of creatures of Filipino folklore, such as Paolo Chictianco's Myth Space, but I am sure that there are more of such stories that we can tell. And for these biologists, there's so much potential to developing intelligent and insightful science fiction stories featuring our country's greatest resource, which is our astounding biodiversity. The Philippines is one of 17 mega biodiversity countries, and as such is characterized by an exceptional number of endemic species, meaning species that we find only here in the Philippines and nowhere else. It is also richly diverse in ecosystems, whether terrestrial or aquatic. So as far as world building goes, that's a lot of material to draw from. And stories on Philippine biodiversity will also bring a lot more attention to the issues, and that's always a good thing. And one of the greatest drivers of biodiversity loss in the Philippines, and actually many other parts of the world, is land conversion. Conversion of natural ecosystems to agricultural lands. I think there's a lot of potential science fiction stories that can be made out of there. Just to end, maybe taking off some points that were mentioned by John and Gabriela, but mostly to wrap it up. I think part of the reason why science fiction, and this reiterates what was said earlier, part of the reason why science fiction hasn't taken flight in the Philippines. Well, actually, literature, if you think about it, like for example, as sad as it is, right, you won't earn a lot of money as a Filipino author in the Philippines. So it's not as if the literary field is as lucrative as it should be, given how much talent there is among Filipinos. But the science fiction genre, in particular, is still in its infancy, as Gabriela had said. And part of that is, I think, there's a fundamental lack of appreciation and awareness of science, basic science. If you think about it, the K-12 educational system that's going to really kick in officially 2018, but has started already in some vein, is going to even lessen that because students will be taking science only in grade 3, I believe. Before that, they'll be getting what they know about science from what they read or what they watch on TV or what anyone tells them, and they believe what they hear. So there is a fundamental need to understand the science first, which is why scientists like myself and probably my fellow scientists in this panel would agree, are very appreciative of science fiction, because science fiction is a way to popularize science. It's a way to get the science out there in a package that people would really appreciate and understand. And when I teach the biology of science fiction course, I always tell my students at the start and at the end, I am not teaching this course to burst bubbles, to ruin your illusions, to make you look at the next science fiction book and say, oh, the science isn't accurate, I won't read this anymore, I'll drop it. No, that's not the point. The point is to give them a whole new level of appreciation of the science fiction texts that they read, because they'll know the science behind it. And I think despite the natural tension between science, which is fact-based, and fiction, which is not fact-based, there's a there's beauty to marrying the two in the science fiction genre and studying it as a legitimate literary genre and a way to understand the world in a better way. Thank you.
Thank you, Ronald.